Hello and welcome to this Learn at Home lesson. This is a design and technology cooking lesson for children in lower key stage 2. So that's year 3 and year 4, aged 7 to 9. On screen now is a list of everything that you will need for this lesson. Additionally, on the recipe sheet there's a list of ingredients and equipment. When you see the pause icon appear on screen, pause the video for a moment and think about the question that I've just asked you. If you're working with someone, you can talk to each other about your ideas. Do you have everything you need? Let's get started. In this lesson, we're looking at American food, and we're going to find out about some important traditional staple foods in America, as well as how the slave trade influenced American cuisine. These images show slaves working in plantations in America during the 18th and 19th centuries. What can you see? All of the slaves were black. The slave owners were white. The picture on the left shows slaves being forced to harvest sugarcane in the Caribbean. It would have been processed and then sold in America. The picture on the right shows slaves picking cotton. Most slaves were captured by slave traders in West Africa, and then they were shipped all the way across the Atlantic to America, where they were sold. Many died on the crossings. Those that did survive had a very hard life of slavery ahead of them. The work was exhausting and very dangerous. Their living conditions were poor, and the food that they ate was insufficient and often of very poor quality. What do you think slave owners and other wealthy white Americans ate? What do you think the poor slaves ate? The image on the left shows a plantation owner's mansion. Can you see the row of slave cabins to the right of the mansion? Slaves would have prepared elaborate meals in the mansion's kitchen for the white slave owners. Their meals would be of high quality, including the very best cuts of meat and fish. But at home, the slaves would only have had basic cooking equipment. They certainly wouldn't have had ovens, and they would have cooked in pots and pans on stoves or even open fires. They cooked meals with corn, which was cheap and plentiful, as well as cheap cuts of meat and shellfish such as shrimp or crab. Today, Americans use the phrase soul food to describe food that originated in the kitchens of slaves and grew to become very popular in Black American and Deep South communities. Pictured now are two very popular types of soul food: pork ribs and fried chicken. What do you notice? Can you start to describe some qualities of soul food? Here are some more popular soul food dishes: butter beans, black-eyed peas, okra and collard greens. So these beans and greens are often served in stews or fried with onions, bacon or liver. What do you notice? Can you use these pictures to help you start to describe some qualities of soul food? Here we can see shrimp and grits, catfish and hush puppies, sweet potato and macaroni and cheese. Soul food dishes are often big, so they can be shared with family and friends. It's heavily influenced by African food because that's where so many slaves were captured. But it's also influenced by Southern food, as so many of the slaves lived and were forced to work in the South. Soul food uses affordable ingredients such as green vegetables, beans and cheaper cuts of meat and fish. The food is often stewed or fried. Filling staple foods like corn always make up part of a soul food meal. What are staple foods? Staple foods are plentiful, affordable, filling foods that form a large part of people's diets. In Britain, potatoes and wheat are the most common staples. Corn is the most important staple food in America, but in the 17th century, European colonists arrived in America and they brought wheat with them. Today, wheat is almost as important a staple food. Cornbread was commonly cooked by slaves. It's still a very popular soul food today too. Traditionally, it's cooked in a skillet, on a stove or over an open fire. Why do you think this method of cooking bread was commonly used by slaves and other poor Americans? Now it's time to get cooking. As well as the cornbread recipe sheet that I mentioned at the start of this video, the activity sheets for this lesson also include a cooking safely guide, and that's pictured on screen now. This has all of the information you need to make sure that you work cleanly and safely when you're cooking. Make sure you take a look at this guide before you get started. Before you start cooking, read all the way through this recipe and make sure that you understand it. You'll be able to complete most of the steps yourself, but you will need the help of an adult when using an oven. Now I'm going to make this cornbread as well, and I'm not going to go through every single step with you now. That's for you to do as you follow the recipe on the sheet included. But I am going to show you a couple of important steps. If you carefully follow the steps in the recipe, hopefully you'll end up with some really delicious cornbread. One of the key steps is to mix your dry ingredients thoroughly first, then mix your wet ingredients thoroughly, and then mix the two together. It just makes the whole process a lot easier. So I'm going to do this now, and I've got my 3 main dry ingredients, the sugar, the plain flour and the polenta in there, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of baking powder to that now. There we go. And then before I've added any of the wet ingredients, mix these together first. So in this jug I've got 2 eggs and the milk, and now I'm going to add some melted butter, which I've just let cool down a bit so it doesn't cook the eggs when I pour it in. So I'm just adding that, and then you can mix up all of the wet ingredients really thoroughly. In the centre of your dry ingredients, make a little well, like a little hole in the middle, and then pour the wet ingredients into that. Then what you're going to do is slowly bring the dry ingredients from around the outside into the centre. And this is a really effective way of combining the two. So I'm going to do that now. So once you've finished mixing your ingredients into a smooth batter, pour it back into the jug, and that makes it easier to then pour the mixture into your baking tin. If you enjoyed baking cornbread, you might like to continue learning about American food after this lesson. You could find some other traditional soul food dishes that you can make for some friends and family at home. Thanks for joining me for this Learn at Home lesson. You'll find information about this as well as other lessons in the series in the description below. If you've not yet got your hands on the resources that accompany this lesson, or maybe you've just come across this video for the first time, stick around to find out how you can download the Learn at Home lesson packs, as well as accessing thousands of resources which are ideal for teaching and learning both at school and at home, all from PlanBee.com. For more information, advice and resources for learning at home, search for PlanBee or visit PlanBee.com. The Home Education page is packed with information about how we can help you with teaching your children at home. As well as thousands of premium resources, including the Learn at Home lesson packs which accompany these videos, there are hundreds of free resources available to download as well. Don't forget to check the links and information in the description below this video for other ways in which PlanBee can help you with learning at home.